baby, listen to me speaking. Know how to move, just say it hard.
Pop, persuadable. What's going on, everybody? I'm not gonna lie, I'm tired, but I told you I was gonna do this video, so I'm gonna get this video done. First and foremost, thank you to all the viewers who are on Twitch right now. And yeah, I'm really tired. One of the questions that I've been asked more than anything as of recent is Prisoner going to replace Mechanic? One of the biggest questions that I've been getting. Everybody knows about the Mechanic nerf that really kind of set her down a little bit, set her back quite significantly, which was well, we kind of knew it was going to eventually happen, but we thought it would happen about 10 seasons ago. So I get this question in regards to, is Mechanic still better than Prisoner? And so I kind of really went out to try to find the answer to this question in a way, in a manner that was more than just my opinion, right? Like, what does the data suggest? What data can we get? How can we calculate it, right? And so I decided that really, unfortunately, in this game, there's very limited ways to get data that would represent the entire overall Identity V community. But if you're going to ask, is Prisoner going to replace Mechanic, one of the best ways to measure that is by top tier gameplay. Now, the good thing is that we do have a way to measure that for top tier gameplay. I don't have a way to measure that for mid tier and low tier, other than what's theoretical or hypothetical or subjective and opinionated. What I decided to do was look at the top 100 players for Prisoner and Mechanic on 3 different servers. I looked at China, Southeast Asia, as well as Northern American, European, okay? So I decided to look at 600 players. So that's 600, bada bing and that bada boom. A lot of things that we got to do. I don't care if it's a YouTube video. Whoever just did that, I love you. Thank you. All right, so here's the thing. I decided to take 600 players' data and I tried to run it to see who's doing the best right now. Are Prisoners doing better than Mechanic? And then on each individual server, I separated it to see what their top 10, 25, 50, and 100 were. Okay, for the overall players. Now, something to remember with character points is that once you start getting into that 7, 8, 9,000, you lose a match, you lose like 60, 70 points. And it'll take you 3 matches to get back up to it. So it is the best way that we can measure which characters are working in regards to Mechanic and Prisoner, which ones are doing better in Legendary rank mode. Okay, here is what I found, and I will try to add this towards the video when I do some video editing, okay? In every single server, China, Southeast Asia, Northern American, European region, Mechanic is still outperforming Prisoner in every measurement that I was able to acquire. Top 10, top 25, top 50, top 100 for every single server. However, it's very interesting to see the differences between the server. So as an example, okay, the average character points of the top mechanics on China right now was about 6,912.3 character points. Okay, Prisoner was 6,411.4. So it's really not that big of a difference, or it is a difference. In Northern American European, we see that the average character points of the top 10 is 5,129. Now remember, we're a week behind, and the top 10 for Prisoner was 4,780. All right, now Southeast Asia, 7,250 for the top 10 mechanics, 5,735 for the top Prisoners. What we were able to find is that actually China and Northern American Europe actually have closer numbers to one another than Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia, there's still a very big discrepancy between top mechanics versus top Prisoners. It has the biggest difference. So on their server right now, they really are crushing it with mechanics. China and Northern American Europe, we're actually closer in resemblance to one another. Now, what's interesting about the data though, is that we see the biggest discrepancies upon the top 10 and the top 25. All right, so if you take the average of the top 10 and the top 25 and you compare the averages between mechanic and prisoner, we see that that is where the biggest difference is. But as we start getting lower down that totem pole, once you start looking at top 50 overall averages and top 100, you see that the numbers start becoming closer and closer to one another. And so as an example, all right, in China, when you factor in the top 100, mechanics are only on average 200 character points more than the prisoners. In Northern America and Europe, it's about 200 as well. So mechanics are about 200 more character points than prisoner. In Southeast Asia, it's almost 1,000 difference. So you're seeing that in Southeast Asia, their mechanics are performing way better than what we are seeing the prisoners in Southeast Asia. But in terms of China and Northern America and Europe, what we are seeing is that we're seeing the biggest difference of about 400 character points between the top 10 and about 400 character points relatively for the top 25. Northern America and Europe's about 300. So that means that mechanics are 300 on average higher. So we see the top players, right? And then you look at the top 50. And in China, you're looking at about 300-400 difference. And then Northern America and Europe, you're looking at about a 200 difference. But once you get to that top 100, it really closes the gap. And so what we're seeing is that in legendary rank mode, okay, although mechanics are still doing much better than doing better than the prisoners, we're seeing that at the tippy top, we're seeing mechanics still slightly outperforming the prisoners. But on average, once we look at the top 100, we're seeing that the difference between the two is very minimal. And that is something that's very important. That is very important. Bada bing and that bada boom. There's a lot of things that I gotta do. And when I clean my room, I use a broom. That's going on YouTube, by the way. So as of now, the data suggests that prisoner is not replacing mechanic in legendary rank mode. But there is something that we have to admit, and that is that there's always a flaw with any sort of methodology. The flaw with the methodology in terms of how I'm measuring it, which in my opinion is the best way to measure it with the data that we have available within the in-game function, is that people are still learning prisoner. People are still learning how to adapt. Some characters take a lot longer. And so that is something that we have to factor in. I'm going to record over this real quick. Another flaw with the methodology is that you got to remember that with character points, sometimes a server can just have players who play more of one character, which can skew the data. But remember, that's why Northern American European server is the least reliable sample data. So that's why we look at the bigger servers with more players where the numbers can't be easily manipulated. So there are flaws with this methodology, but in my opinion, it's one of the best ways to measure with what we have in game. Do I think prisoner is going to replace mechanic? I don't know. I don't know because it might still be too soon. What we do know is that unfortunately, or rather what we don't know, is the data that we could have had maybe 2 months ago. And so our prisoner is now catching up to mechanic. What I can tell you is this. I didn't collect data on all of the characters. I did not collect data on all of the characters. But the question is did the nerf hurt the mechanic? And I did calculate over 2,000 players' data in Season 7. And what I can tell you from China alone is that, well, let me scroll down here. In China, in Season 7, the top 10 averaged about 11,000 character points. Top 25, 10,000. Top 50, 9,666. Top 100, 8,919. Okay. To give you comparisons of the top 100 for mechanic users, okay, they were higher than almost every other. The only top 100 that was higher than them was, I think that is Merc. So only Mercenary was higher than Mechanic in Season 7. That's something to remember, because what we are seeing with this data now is that we're seeing that in regards to Mechanic and Prisoner, this Mechanic nerf has significantly hurt her. And we can see that within the character points. I did not calculate a trajectory. However, what I did calculate is that right now there is no data anywhere at any point in time that suggests that Prisoner is outperforming Mechanic. The only argument that would make sense is that you could say, however, nobody has calculated the data, you could say that prisoner is catching up to mechanic, and then that would be more of a trajectory argument. You're really just trying to do a sort of forecast and trying to say, I think that prisoner will outperform mechanic in the future because he's becoming closer and closer to mechanic's numbers. You can make that argument, but you cannot say as of now that prisoner is outperforming mechanic. It's just not working as of now. And that is my video. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. You guys have a good evening.